So let us discuss about a general essay. It was included by UPSC in 1993, from 1993 onwards. It was part of your mains examination. Satish Chandra committee has recommended inclusion of general essay in civil services apart from the general studies papers. So what is the reason why they have included this general essay in your, why did they include essay in your syllabus? What is the reason why they have included it? Why? Because once after getting into civil services, you are expected to write various reports in whatever the service you are there, whether it is IAS. If you are getting into foreign service, you have to send regular reports to the government about the conditions in that particular country as part of embassy officials. Similarly, as an IAS officer as well as other services, you are expected to write government reports. And UPSC would like to see whether you have the necessary ability to write in a logical and more rational manner. They would like to see whether you can write reports in such a manner that they will be understood by the people, whether you can put everything in your reports or not, more analytical, rational and logical. And how will they test those things? They wanted to test they cannot test those things in your GS answers, because in GS you will be writing only maximum 200 words. They would like to see whether you have the ability to interconnect the things, whether you have the ability to put the things in a right perspective, whether you have the ability to analyze the things from different dimensions. And that is the reason why the committee has recommended inclusion of a general essay in your civil service examination. From then onwards, essay has become a very important part of your civil services examination. Initially, it used to be 300 marks. Now, after 2013, UPSC has reduced the marks to 250 for a general essay. Initially, in the last first 2 years, they were giving only one essay to write for 250 marks, and you are expected to write around 2000 words, between 2000 to 2500 words. And in the last 2 years, they have changed the pattern. And you are expected to write 2 essays of 1000 words each minimum. It can go up to 1200 words. So that overall you will be writing around again 2000 to 2500 words. So, as we have said, that the objective is to see whether you have the ability to write precisely, whether you have the ability to interconnect the things, whether you have the ability to come out with logical explanation. Is no, they cannot be asking less than that, more than 2 essays. If it is 3 essays, it becomes a GS answer. Essay means you must be writing minimum 1000 words. Right now, the notification says that essays, so there will be 2 essays. Notification talks about plural. So at present, it will continue at least for the next year. After that, we will see. In the long run, we are all dead, so we don't think about beyond next year. So this is what for the next year it will be 2 essays. For this year as well as the next year it will be 2 essays. After that they might remove essay. They will ask you to SMS your answers. Because in the age of SMS, essays are part of what we call ancient culture. Nowadays nobody writes essays. And if you look at Supreme Court judgments, the judgments are running into 15,000 pages, 20,000 pages, 30,000 pages. Each judgment, 20,000 pages. So relative, small and big are only relative in nature. On the other hand, on Twitter, in 140 alphabets, you are defining the entire world. So basically the objective here is to see whether you have the necessary ability to express yourself in a precise manner, in an interesting manner. So, and if you look at the pattern of essays asked by UPSC in the last 4 years or so, if you look at the pattern of essays asked by UPSC in the last 4 years or so, essays were mostly asked on 3 different topics. Mostly. First one is governance and administration and polity. Maximum essays are asked from these topics: governance, administration and polity. Second one is on economy and social issues. Economy and social issues. Second type of essays. And the third type of essays are on mostly philosophical. Philosophical essays, mostly philosophical. And if you want to include the fourth one is related to technology, science and tech. They normally give the statement of say Mahatma Gandhi, and they will ask you to write as essay. Philosophical. They'll give the statements of philosophers or famous poets. They take the statements and they'll give them as essay. So this is what they are asking. And one thing you must remember is that most of them are related to current events. Most of them are related to current events in essays. So, what is important when it comes to essays is if you are having good knowledge about your remaining 4 papers of GS, that is history, geography, polity, governance, economy, social issues and ethics, you will be writing good essays. If you have good knowledge about these papers, you will be writing good essays. And vice versa also. Coming back here, these are the kind of essays they are asking related to these 4 topics. In the last 2 years, if you see, focus was more on these things. Focus was more on these first 2 topics. More on these first 2 topics. Governance, polity, economy and social issues. The essays were more on these topics. So, what is the difference? Let us see what is the difference between writing essays and GS answers. What is the difference between writing essays and GS answers? What happens is that when we see the things, people will get good marks in GS but not in essays. In essays, they have very good knowledge of current affairs and everything, because of which they will be getting good marks in GS. But in essays, their scores will not be more than 120, 130 marks. What is the difference here? The difference is that in GS, you know your boundaries. They can be easily defined. You know your limitations in general studies. And GS, you are expected to write what we call predictable answers within the limitations in GS. And another thing is that in GS answers, you need a lot of precision, very precise answers in GS. Whereas in case of essays, there are no limitations. There are no limitations. There are no boundaries. And another important thing here is that in essays, they will reward for your creativity. they will reward your creativity in essays. They will be rewarding your creativity. So, in essays, more importance will be given to originality. Original. Rather than writing about the facts, they will reward if you write something original, which you have not copied from anything else. And more importantly, in essays, you have to write very interesting ones. You have to make your essay interesting. In GS, you are writing answers with your brain, with your mind, with your intelligence. In essays, you will be writing with your heart. You must be writing with your heart. You must include emotions in your essays. Whereas in GS, you must include facts. In GS, you are including facts. In essays, you must include emotions. And in essays, you must make them multidimensional. You must make them multidimensional. And in essays, you are expected to come out with innovative solutions. They may not be practical, they may not be pragmatic. You have the freedom to come out with innovative solutions in essays. There are more innovative solutions. So that is what you have to remember while writing about essays. Less emphasis on facts, more emphasis on emotions. Less emphasis on in analysis, more emphasis on these kind of innovation and other things. Emotions in the sense that if I read your essay, I should be able to feel whatever you are writing. I should be able to feel the pain of your words. I should be able to have the feeling of ecstasy. I should be able to feel the anger and frustration. That is what you must make sure while writing essays. In GS, there is no place for these things in general studies, because you are writing answers in a particular format in general studies. In general studies, there is no scope for innovation or creativity. In GS, you are mostly writing predictable, regular, boring answers. If you do the things in essay, they will not accept it. So if you are writing about, say, economic reforms and jobless growth, if you write about the schemes implemented by the government of India to ensure job-led growth, I don't give any marks. I will not give any marks. Already you have written those things in your general studies, Indian economy. I want you to come out with innovative solutions. So in essays, you must avoid writing about unnecessary too many facts, or about government schemes, or about the information, unwanted information. On the other hand, in essays, you have to make them interesting by making your essays more sentimental, emotional, so that I could feel your emotions. Not social issues, anything. It can be about political issues, social issues, or administrative issues, but make it more emotional. Instead of writing about the articles of the Constitution, you will be writing about the functioning of the real functioning of the Constitution. In GS, you will be writing about articles of the Constitution, and that is what when we say that it should be made more emotional. That is where you will be getting marks. I will give you marks in your essays only if you make me read your entire essay without any break. From the first letter to the last word, I should be able to flow with the emotions in the essay. You must express your anger, frustration, disappointment, and happiness, enjoyment, satisfaction. All these things should be there in your essay. It is like watching a Bollywood movie having full of emotions. You know the outcome, but you will watch it till the end. Why? Because it is interesting. It is interesting. And that is what you are expected to do as part of essays. You must be a very good storyteller while writing essays. Very good storyteller. And you will not be a good storyteller if you start quoting D.D. Basu. If you start quoting D.D. Basu to a person on the street, what will he do? He will ask you to get lost. On the other hand, if you explain the issue to him in his own language, what is the universal language? Emotions. Emotions, universal language. Then you will get you will get marks in your essay. And this is what you are expected to do. And that is the reason why I always say that the preparation for essay is not anything separate. When you are reading books, when you are reading novels, when you are watching movies, you can see the flow of emotions in a continuous manner, which makes the whole process interesting. At the end of the day, your heart is filled with joy, and that is what I should feel when I say your essays. I must feel the sense of happiness, satisfaction, and the sense of achievement when I read your essay. So if you write about articles of the Constitution and the programs of the government, I don't feel like giving marks. It shows that you don't have any creativity or innovative abilities. So this is what you have to do for essays. Next, what should be the structure? What should be the body of your essay? What should be the structure or body of your essay? So if you are writing essay, minimum 1000 words and maximum 1200 words. Minimum 1000 words and maximum 1200 words in any essay. So you will be writing between 10 to 12 pages. You will be writing between 10 to 12 pages. And assuming that per page you will be writing around 100 words. Per page you will be writing 100 words. You will be writing 10 to 12 pages. Then it will be a Herculean task for the other person to read 12 pages. 2 essays means 24 pages. Per day, if he has to read a minimum, evaluate 30 answer sheets. Here 30 into 24 pages. How many? How many pages? 720 pages. He will go to Gangaram Hospital. So, when you are writing essay, you need that empathy. Think about the person who is evaluating your essay. Think about his plight. Think about how to make life comfortable for that person. That is what is essay all about. Because if I start reading the essays, after reading 2-3 essays, I get bored because I will be seeing the same points. I will be looking at the same matter. From 4th essay onwards, I don't feel like giving marks. So those who get the top marks are the ones mostly whose answer sheets are evaluated in the beginning. But can you depend on this kind of luck in the UPSC examination? You cannot. Those who are getting 160 marks are those people whose answer sheets must have been evaluated in the beginning. Rest of them will be, this year they have given very good marks in essay. People have got 160s, 150s very easily. But again, most of the people have got around 120s and 130s. And one single mark can make a huge amount of difference in the final list. One single mark can differentiate between IAS and IAAS. One additional A will be there. That will ruin your life forever. Numerology. One single alphabet can ruin your life forever. So obviously, essay is one paper where you must be scoring above 150 marks. Going by the liberal standards of UPSC, in terms of evaluation. If you are scoring 155 marks, and if you are scoring 120 marks, 35 marks means at least minimum 250 ranks.
So there is only 2 essays.
You have to write 2 essays.
And each essay will be of 125 marks.
Yes,
But writing will be
3 hours for both essays combined together. So 35 marks difference means at least 200 to 220 ranks. It means the difference between IAS and writing next year. Okay, writing next year you don't know what will happen. Okay, so that is where you must be very sure about essay. So if you are writing see 10-12 pages, if you are writing 10 to 12 pages, I will not read it unless each page is very interesting for me. If you have to watch a movie for 3 hours, you have to put so much of concentration to watch it for 3 hours. In between, if there are any dull and boring moments, you will leave the theater and you will never come back. Similarly, if I find any part of your essay uninteresting, boring, I will not read the rest of the things. Even if I read the rest of the things, I will be doing it in a mechanical manner because I have to do it. I will not enjoy the whole process. And obviously, I will not give you marks. I will give you average marks. And average marks this year means around 120 to 130. When people are getting 160 marks, obviously 40 marks difference will be there between you and the toppers. 40 marks difference. So how to ensure that you will be there with the top? For that, as I said, from first page till 10th page, whatever you write, it should be interesting. So the first thing you have to do, is selecting the essay. In section A, they will give you 3 essays. Section B, they will give you 3 essays, out of which you have to write 1. The first thing will be selecting the essays. Selecting the essays. Because once you select the right kind of essay, which has the mixture, blend of emotions, all kinds of emotions, half of your job is done. Half of your job is done once you select the right essay. Why it is important? Why? Because this year, this year means last year, most of our students have written about digital economy and the essay related to digital technologies. Now, when you are writing essays related to that, when you are writing about digital economy and digital technologies, those essays are mostly technical in nature. People, they think that they have studied information technology, so they can write sciences, so they can write good essays. No. This digital technology, digital economy, these kind of essays, you cannot make them interesting. What will you write for 10 pages? You cannot make them interesting. And what happens after some point of time, you simply don't know what you have to write. You start filling the pages without having any kind of connections. So, selecting the essay is the most important thing here. When you are looking at essays which are more technical, you will not get marks. Definitely you will not score 160 marks. Technical. On the other hand, when you are writing mains examination, you have to select those kind of questions, because that will give you maximum marks. Because there your answers can be perfect on the basis of facts. Whereas when it comes to essays, selecting those kind of essays will be resulting in straight away loss of 15-20 marks, and the game is lost even before it has begun. So the first thing you have to remember is you have to select those essays which are what you call emotional, which are sentimental, where you can express your feelings unhindered. There is no limit to your feelings, where you can make examiner cry with emotions, laugh, get angry, frustrated. That is what you must do. So what are those essays where you can have this kind of emotions? What are the essays? Essays that deal with social issues, essays that deal with political issues, and to some extent essays that deal with governance issues. To some extent essays that deal with governance issues. And this is what is important. You have to select both the essays. People believe that if they select these kind of essays, especially in section A and section B, if they write say political essays, they believe that they may not get marks. That's why they try to change their strategy. One essay they will take political issue, another essay they will take the technology one. Not the thing. If something is good, you have to do it all the time. That is what you have to remember. If two political essays are there in section A and section B, select them and write answers. If two social issues related essays are there in section A and section B, select them and write answers. Don't believe that you should be opting for diversity for the sake of diversity. If something is good, it should be done regularly. No, I will talk about this thing. First I am telling you the things. Then when I discuss the essays, I will come to those things. Okay. So in both section A and section B, you must look for these things, these topics while selecting essays. That is very, very important. Selecting the topic. As I said, people believe that if they select essays of from these topics in section A and section B, they may not get marks because examiner thinks that you know only politics. No, when UPSC is giving choices, you must utilize the choices. So what they do is that they will take one essay related to polity or administration or economy. Second essay invariably they select science and technology. Essay will be there definitely. Obviously, the second essay they will not get marks. Why? Because you cannot impress me with your knowledge. I will be impressed only with your emotions. Knowledge. What is the feeling of a person when he sees the other person to be knowledgeable? What would be my feeling? Jealousy. The more you try to impress me with your knowledge, the more jealous I feel about yourself. On the other hand, if I see other person suffering from any kind of pain or any kind of trouble, what is my feeling? Empathy. So I will be more favorable towards that person. So in the essays, rather than displaying my knowledge, I will display my emotions. So that the person who is evaluating my essay will feel my emotions, and he can give me marks. Because knowledge will never give me knowledge. The only counter emotion to knowledge is jealousy. I feel jealous about other person's knowledge. If you are writing about digital technology, if you write about so many things which I don't know, how do I feel? Then I feel like a fool. I feel like a completely foolish person. And what is my reaction? You are hurting my ego. You are hurting my sentiments. The reaction will be negative. That is what you must remember. These are all psychological things when you are writing for a UPSC examination. These are all psychological things because you think that you have studied sciences very well. You are from IT background. You think that you can write very good essay. I am not from IT background. When I read your essay, who will evaluate your essays? Your essays will be evaluated by university professors. Your essays will be evaluated by professors from Indian Institute of Public Administration, IIPA. They are experts in public administration but not in technology. And how can you impress them with your knowledge of technology? So I will not give you marks. It is as simple as that one. I will not give you marks. However, howsoever you have written, your essay in terms of, in-depth knowledge of the technology, I will not give you marks. Because I cannot emotionally connect with your essay. So both the essays you must be selecting only from these issues: polity, economy, social issues and administration. You must select from these issues. Economy also not hardcore economy, mostly application aspects of economy. In economic reforms and jobless growth, a very good essay topic. You must select those things. Next, as I said, once the selection of the essay is done, as I said, the next step will be preparing the structure. You have to write around how many words? 1000 to 1200 words. How long will it take you to write 1000 1200 words? How long will it take? Pardon? 45 minutes to let's say 1 hour. Right? So take the maximum time period 1 hour. So 2 hours you will be writing. Out of the 3 hours, for 2 hours you will be writing. And you have to write continuously. So you have 1 hour time left. We should be divided into 2 parts, 30 minutes each. 30 minutes. And this 30 minutes you should use for framing the structure of your essay. 30 minutes. If you can write fast, you can increase this time to 40 minutes also, if you are good with your writing skills. Otherwise, minimum 30 minutes you can use to frame the structure of your essay. And this 1 hour of your essay writing depends on what you have done in 30 minutes. Very, very important. Very, very important in framing the structure of your essay. What do you mean by framing the structure of your essay? What you are doing in those 30 minutes? As I said, you are writing 10 pages minimum. 10 pages. And you have to make the examiner read all those 10 pages. Till 10th page, from first page. From first page to second page. Right? So if he has to read all the 10 pages with the same kind of intensity, in every page something should be there for him. First page, second page cannot be simply continuation of the first page. Second page must have something different for him to read. So what you have to do is that you have to decide what are the dimensions you are covering in those 10 pages. In each page, what are the dimensions you are covering? What do you mean by that? Every essay has many dimensions. If you take one essay, it has multiple dimensions, starting with historical dimension, then a political dimension, then economic dimension, then administrative dimension, then ethical, philosophical dimension, ethical or philosophical dimension, then global dimension, then ecological, environmental dimension, then cultural dimension, social and cultural dimension, So for 10 pages you have included the dimensions. In one page you can write 2 dimensions also, depending on the essay. You have to cover all these dimensions. That is very, very important. When you are writing essays, you will be covering all these dimensions. And what you have to do? You have to interconnect all of them. Interlinkages. You have to interlink all these dimensions. This is like, as I keep on saying, it is like watching a film. It starts with an emotional scene. From there it will go to comedy. From there it will go to songs. Then fight. Then, other things. Seamlessly, woven into the whole fabric. That is what essay is all about. Including all these things. Unless you include all these dimensions in your essay, it will not be interesting in nature. Where can you include all the dimensions? Only when you select those essays which have potential for these dimensions. Technological essays, essays that deal with technology, sciences, and there you don't have this kind of dimensions. If you try to include them, it would look artificial. That is the reason why I said that selecting the essay is very important in terms of having all these dimensions. Then after selecting all the dimensions, what you have to do is you start with your introduction. This is what they say in English. A good beginning is always half the job done. A good beginning is always half the job done. So you can make your essays interesting. You can make your essays interesting with a very good introduction. So how do you introduce your essays? How do you introduce your essays? Pardon? Yeah, you can. That's what introduction. What are the different types of introduction? How can you introduce? How can you introduce the topics? Pardon? Short stories. The stories should look real. Otherwise, it will be like Shah Rukh Khan films. That is very boring. So let us, as we proceed with the essays, I will be taking up all the topics and I will tell you how to go about the introduction. So what is the major parameters for introduction? As you said, you can start your introduction with quotations. Quotations of, from great philosophers or the leaders. Quotations. Then, is there any other way of introduction? As someone said, small stories. Small stories. For example, if you are writing about digital economy, you can start with the story about two young people from IITs. Start, coming out with a startup, to sell products on the internet. They did not have sufficient money. Somehow they could pull the resources, and they started, e-commerce, which was new to India. Initially, they faced a lot of problems in terms of resources, manpower, and everything, but they continued, and within a short period of time, it had resulted in the emergence of one of the biggest e-commerce companies in the world. What is it? Flipkart. You can tell it in like a story. The power of digital economy. Like a story. But you have to write in the form of a story. In the form of a story, not in the form of a situation. The problem is that when people write, when they give introduction in the form of stories, they never write it like a story. They narrate the incident. Narrating the incidents will never be interesting. Life is never interesting. Real life incidents can never be interesting. You have to make them interesting.
We have to tell about the challenges that we have faced and what are the
No,
benefits of the
nobody is interested in your own stories. Nobody has time for your agony and pain and troubles. We are only interested in the stories of successful people. So, and when you are writing these things, what I am saying is that when you are narrating this story, make it more interesting, make it more emotional. That is what I said. Add some spice into the story. What you heard, or you can, that is what about fiction. Fiction is all about making the things interesting. That is what you are expected to do when you are narrating the stories. Okay, two young men, fresh from college, had different ideas about life. Start with like this. Had different ideas about life. They did not want to travel on the beaten path. They wanted to have their own path. Something like this. And it obviously resulted in more problems and troubles. Whereas their friends were leading a very happy and prosperous life. It was challenging for them. But they continued. And ultimately it resulted in creation of one of the largest e-commerce companies in. Those young men are none other than the names. If you put it like this, rather than saying that there was this guy called what is his name, Flipkart? What are their names? Bansal. So if you write about their names and they studied in Chandigarh, from there they went to Madhya Pradesh, then they went to Bangalore, it will not be interesting. As I said, whatever that happened, you are making it more interesting with your words by creating a suspense, drama, excitement, and that is what is essay. I want you to develop these kind of skills while writing essays. Whatever, storytelling is an art. Storytelling is an art. That is the reason why you see big directors, after one or two films, they keep on repeating themselves because they don't know what to do. This guy is there, this director, Imtiaz Ali, I think, his first film was a super hit film. What is that? Dil Chahta Hai? Yes? Farhan Akhtar. Yes, Farhan Akhtar. Okay. It was a super hit film. Then what happened? He started repeating himself. Okay. So creativity is very difficult. Since the film was different, people amped it up. After that, when he started repeating itself, his film started flopping. Similarly, when you are writing essays, if I read the same essay, digital economy, if I will be writing with these guys only, Bansal, and I will write the same story in a different manner to create more interest. These young men had a dream which is not conventional. Of course, they don't have any of those attributes, but you are putting them. That is how you create, Superman characters, right? And that is where, what is the story of Bahubali? You must have seen Bahubali film. Yes? Have you seen that film? Yes, sir. The story is very age-old story. Nothing new. But the screenplay is so good that, you just are tuned to the film for 3 hours. You don't know when the film is over also. Emotions. Emotions. And that is what essay should be all about. And I want you to develop that art of making what you call mundane things very interesting in the eyes of the readers. It is, as someone has said that in India, in our films, every year Indian film industry churns out thousands of films. There are only 2 stories. One is Ramayana and second one is Mahabharata. We keep on repeating them, but we keep on watching the same thing again. Why? Because it is about telling the stories. Essay is exactly about telling the stories in a very interesting manner. Very interesting manner. You don't even realize that it is over. And that is what should be essay about. That is where I said introduction will be. If you are starting with quotations, so if the film starts with a quotation of Mahatma Gandhi, second minute nobody will be there in the answer, will be there in the cinema hall. They are not there. They are not there to, they are not there to transform themselves into good human beings, right? They are there to enjoy the emotions. So if you start with quotations, the problem is that for a person like me who does not like Mahatma Gandhi, who thinks himself to be far better than Mahatma Gandhi, I feel bad. I feel boring. Then after that I will not read. You must remember that good people are always boring. Right? When will people become interesting? Only when they are bad. Right? Look at Narendra Modi. From morning to evening he works and works. Is there any interest in his life? Extremely boring. If you have to be in his position, you will commit suicide immediately. Because life is so dull and boring. On the other hand, look at Rahul Gandhi, extremely colorful. Right? The same thing, I am only telling the things which are obvious. I am not attaching any kind of values to my statements. I am only telling those things which are obvious. Bad people are always interesting. Hitler is always more interesting at any point of than Mahatma Gandhi. Why? Because with Mahatma Gandhi we know about his behavior, extremely predictable. Whereas in case of Hitler, Donald Trump will always be interesting because of unpredictability. Right? And I want your essays to be like that. I want your essays to be unpredictable. This is a very difficult art. But if you practice it, obviously it's a question of 160 marks. It's a question of 160 marks. In GS, you'll be reading right from ancient history to end of civilization, and you will get only 20 marks. If you put some kind of effort in essays, you will get 160 marks. Right? And that is what you must do. Think how to make your essays interesting. How to make your essays unpredictable, how to make your essays entertaining, and how to make your essays emotional. So whatever the essays that we will be discussing in the next 4 days or so, I will not be dictating the essays. If that is the case, you don't have to be here. I can always write the essays and I will give the printout and they say that you read them. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to make you think in an unconventional manner, unpredictable manner, and at the same time extremely interesting. At the same time extremely interesting. You look at again I come back to that film Bahubali. Look at the mother, the queen mother. In the first part she was very good. In second part she became evil. That is the reason why it had become very interesting. Otherwise there is no need for any second part. There is a radical change in her behavior. That is the reason why the film had become very interesting. Otherwise, she were to be good. What she would have done? She would have punished her son, and she would have appointed Bahubali as the emperor. But it did not happen. That is the reason why film became interesting. If you look at Mahabharata, Duryodhan is always more interesting than all the Pandavas combined together. Because without Duryodhan, there is no Mahabharata. Right? Always villain characters are more interesting than hero. In your essays also, I keep on saying, those who write conventional, boring essays will never get marks. I say marks means 160. They will definitely get 120 marks, so that they can go to UPSC, attend interview, have a cup of tea in the canteen, come back and to Old Nagar and prepare for next year. That is not what you want. You want a service, and for that you don't mind taking risks. Risk taking is a part of your it's a part of your preparation. If you write conventional things, you will get conventional marks. That is why I said that interesting interaction should be very interesting. It can be very interesting. It should be very interesting. As I said, it can be in the form of small stories. What else can be done to make it interesting? What else can be done to make it interesting? Apart from small stories. Pardon? Yeah, come out with revolutionary statements. Thought-provoking ideas. Come out with revolutionary, revolutionary statements, thought-provoking ideas as part of introduction. Big Bang theory, Big Bang. Once you come out with such a high intense, questions, when examiner is sleeping, the evaluator is sleeping in the afternoon when he is evaluating your answer sheet, he will be severely jolted and he will start reading with eyes wide open the moment he sees your introduction. Your job is done. Your job is to make him read what you are writing. Your job is to make him read what you are writing. For example, I think sometime back, 2 years back, the essay was there, Capitalism and Inclusive Growth. The essay was there. So what I would write while writing about capitalism and inclusive growth? What people will write? People write about what is capitalism, what is inclusive growth, and what is the relation between them. And they will get, again as usual, 120 marks, and next year they will write about cooperative federalism. Right? What I will write is that when writing about capitalism and inclusive growth, what I would say is that, the needs of human beings are universal. Why not the resources? When as human beings, our needs are universal, uniform. Every person has a need, to satisfy his hunger, to satisfy his basic needs in the form of food, clothing and shelter. When these needs are universal, why not resources? It takes at least half an hour for the person to understand what we are saying. When the needs are universal, why resources should be private, individualistic? That is the essence of capitalism. And more than enough. I will get my 160 immediately. One single statement is more than enough. Because it is highly thought-provoking. When human beings, their needs are universal. When nature belongs to everyone, why not resources? Why should resources be limited to some people in the name of capitalism? That answers the entire essay. Extremely thought-provoking. That is what, when I say coming out with radical statements. This is one way of, as we keep on discussing the essays, this is how we will be proceeding with them. Coming out with those kind of radical thoughts to make your essays interesting. And when you are writing those things, what becomes more important is the explanation you give. And my job of making the evaluator reading my essay will be complete. Because when I come out with this kind of radical statements, he will definitely sit up and read what I am writing next. That is the whole essence of writing, making the other person interested in what you are going to say next sentence. And that is what you have to do while writing essays. Similarly, last year the essay was there, cooperative federalism. Okay. Then I will not talk about constitution, or I will not talk about articles of constitution as part of my introduction. I will go back to the ancient times, historical dimension. I will say that even during the times of Ashoka, also India was a federal, India had a federal form of government. Then examiner will be bewildered. How can you say that Ashoka times for a federal form of government? What do you mean by federal form of government? Wherein the local units are given more independence. Ashoka was directly ruling only Patliputra. Rest of the places were ruled by other rulers who had recognized the sovereignty of Ashoka, the emperor. That is nothing but federal form of government. I will explain these things. That is more than enough, because nobody will be writing a essay from this dimension, from these kind of dimensions. Everywhere talk about what is federation, what is confederation, what is unitary form of government, and they will be making their essays completely what you call routine, boring. Okay. Then I will go to the other periods. During Mughal times also, when the Mughals ruled the entire country, Mughal country included, Mughal empire included right from Afghanistan to Bangladesh, and from Kashmir till Tamil Nadu. Even then also it was only a federal form of government. That is what I say. And then I will come to the Britishers. I will say that the first thing Britishers had recognized was India can never be ruled from a single place. That is the reason why first they made the Governor of Bengal Governor General, and then they gave more independence to the governors of Madras and Bombay. I will come to those things. Historical dimension. So, this is how, you must be, thinking about introduction. Introduction should be made so interesting that, it should be made so interesting that your half job should be done with the introduction only. Once you make the examiner read your introduction with a lot of, interest and intensity, the rest of things will be very easy. On the other hand, if you write introduction in a very, as I said, very boring manner, it becomes difficult to sustain interest in your essays. And this is what you must practice for essays. Any topic you take, you have to think about introduction. The first 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes should be about the introduction only. As part of half an hour preparation for your essay, as part of the structure, first 5-10 minutes should be about what your introduction only. How to make it, how to have that big bang effect as part of your introduction. And you can have these kind of things. Take that essay. Last year they have asked, if development is not engendered, it is endangered. What kind of dramatic introduction can you come out with? Very boring. Engendered, it is endangered. No. Come out with something dramatic.
Going back to some ancient stories of like Gandhi was challenged.
No.
That effect was so much prosperous and money.
Everyone will be writing, misusing, abusing, using Gandhi. And Gandhi would approach National Human Rights Commission. No. If development is not engendered, it is endangered. Think. When I give you the example, you say that it is very good. Quoting? What? Green revolution do not work. You can give the example of Indira Gandhi, but better, interesting. But the problem is that cars don't have any gender. Neither cars nor tires. I got your point, but again, it has to be more. It has to be more. Pardon? It is, it is. You'll be writing the same thing in your general studies. In essays, you have to write something better. Think about it. That is what a preparation for essay means. Introduction should always be very interesting. That is the kind of essays, what you are saying is for that essay. 2 years back, I think there was one essay about dreams. My dream about dreams that should not let India sleep. There you can talk about 2047 and 2055. For example, you can say that Bangladesh would not have been there but for a woman. Right? Bangladesh, the country Bangladesh would not have been on the world map but for a woman. Right? It will take time for him to understand. And one single sentence is more than enough. You give examples like this. About the successful woman, dramatizing the whole thing. And what are the other examples can you give about successful women? Or what are the other examples? Yes. Successful women either in politics or in any other field. Again, as I said, dramatic. What did she do? Except she was the aunt of Indira Gandhi, whom Indira Gandhi never liked. Pardon? How does it really matter, first or last? Something different, something unique. According to Vedas, Vedas would not have been there had not there been a woman. And who is the head of Vedas according to who is the head of who is the founder of Vedas according to ancient literature? Gayatri, a woman. And the mantra, Gayatri mantra which we recite is for a woman. Okay, you can write these kind of things. And the goddess of knowledge is Saraswati, a woman. So, like this, you can give examples. That's what I am saying. When you're writing about these essays, you have to strike in the beginning itself. Explain the tempo of your essay. Why development is endangered if it is not engendered. Why development is endangered if it is not engendered. I will come out with these radical examples. A country like Bangladesh would not have been there on the world map but for a woman. India would not have the luxury of the knowledge of Vedas again but for a woman. The ancient wisdom, culture, knowledge Again, the source was a woman. And the goddess of wealth, which everyone worships in this capitalist societies, again, the person is a woman. Okay. Then, similarly, come to the present day-to-day life. Then, what kind of other dramatic statements you can come out with? Talking about, importance of women. Yes. Think about it, At least women should think. These kind of things, small things, I am talking about dramatic ones. Rule of? No, I am saying that you have to come out with one-liners in the introduction. One-liners, popular one-liners, which attract the attention of the examiner. To talk about the importance of women. Just one line. Pardon? Gemmas don't believe. Okay. Next. Something dramatic. The first war of independence in India, 1857. Right? Think about, all these things you know. What is required is presence of mind. 1857. What is the cause? A woman. And if you want to go back, take case of both epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. The reason? A woman. Start with those things. And once you give these examples, examiner knows on which side you are. That is more than enough. You take the case of both Ramayana and Mahabharata, whether for good or bad, it is always women who is responsible. Ramayana had taken place because of Sita, and Mahabharata war had taken place because of Draupadi. Right? Why can't you think on these lines? That is what I am saying. You know all these things, but the problem is that you have studied things in such a structured manner that you feel that thinking on these lines is also a crime. Essay is all about freeing yourself from all kinds of bondages and limitations and all kinds of boundaries. Yes. I don't know. I am not much aware about the Greek mythology, and I know that. I am not much aware. That's what I know that. But again, I will be more connected to Draupadi and Sita compared to Helen. Right? That is where again common sense becomes very important. It does not really matter to me whether Ramayana and Mahabharata had taken place or not. What I am doing is that whether I am using them or not in my answers, that's more than enough. That's more than enough. Troy, I don't know whether the war had taken place or not. When did it take place? Who were the actors involved in it? Whether, you ask any child in India, they will tell you what is Ramayana and Mahabharata. They will tell you who is Sita and who is Draupadi. Right? That is where emotional connect. You can write out, now that's more than enough, You can show your creativity up to destructive levels, no problem. You can write about all the things. But again, I am telling you how to proceed. That is what I am saying. You have to think on those lines. When you write these things, definitely your 150 is assured. Because nobody will be writing. Some of you have written those things. Did you start with these things? Those who have written mains, obviously, Not. You'll be writing your essays in a very, what you call, a structured manner. And that's why I said that this introduction is important. Once this introduction is there on your front page, first page, from second page onwards, you must be including all dimensions. So, for example, you take the case of this engendered and endangered. You include political dimension. You include administrative dimension. You include cultural dimension. You include economic dimension. You include historical dimension. You include gender, ethical dimension. And you include the global dimension. Combine all of them, the essay is over. And whenever you are including those dimensions, come out with interesting examples. For example, political dimension. How do you say that about political dimension? Pardon? Again, that is a part of solutions, problems. What I would say is that political empowerment is one of the instruments, can never be the ultimate goals to ensure women empowerment. I will give the example. India had a woman prime minister for 17 years and had a most powerful woman ruling the country for 10 years. Sonia Gandhi. So 17 plus 10, 27 years. Out of 70 years of independence, we had only women ruling the country. Has it resulted in empowerment of women? Then I will put a rhetorical question. Can a woman prime minister really mean empowerment of women at the lowest level? And I will put the question mark and I will underline it. For political dimension, I will my interesting statement will be like this. Then I will give for me, the objective is to make the examiner read my answers. Every page I will come out with this kind of interesting statements. Every page. As part of my preparation, the structure of the body, I will be writing those statements. 1, 2, 3, 2, 4, 5, 6. Then once I start writing the answer, essay, I will be completing it in 40 minutes time. Because I will only giving the explanation. As I said, when writing about the political dimension, can a woman prime minister ensure empowerment of women? And I will say that the answer is big no. I will say no, N-word. Then I will give the explanation. Then I will come to the economic dimension. Economic dimension. What is the controversial statement? What is the what is the interesting statement I will give about economic dimension for women empowerment, economic dimension? And I will look at this thing from the point of view of women. If a woman is working, it is adding more burden in Indian societies to her rather than relieving burden on her shoulders. Because a working woman has to take care of as well as the office. Does it really result in empowerment of women or make women more imprisoned? Yes? Right? Everyone talks about a working woman, but does anyone think about the problems of working women? Because in our patriarchal societies, when both men and women are working, the standards are different. Men work only in the office. When it comes to home, he will not. But women has to take care of the family also. So a working woman, economic freedom, it might give economic freedom, but it makes her more imprisoned. Yes? I will bring in these dimensions. You have to think, you have to analyze. That is where your essay will be about. Everyone talks about women contributing to economy, fine. But what about the burden on her shoulders when she is working? When can as the essay says, when can development be when can development be sustainable? only when men are willing to share the burden. It is not about women empowerment, it is about changing the attitudes and the behaviors of men. Women empowerment is not independent variable, neither political nor economic nor anything else can result in empowerment of women unless there are changes in the attitudes of men. Okay. So even Indira Gandhi had to bring up her children when she was in politics. You know, when I give the examples of women in politics who had to balance their professional life with personal life, which adds more burden. But society never thinks in terms of the burden on the shoulders of women. They only think in terms of the productivity. They say that when 50% of women are not working, it is not resulting in growth and development of the country.
Like the example of Northeast, how they are getting better, but
Yeah, then you talk about evolution, the changes. But as I said, when you are writing, again you have to think beyond conventional things in essays, because it gives opportunity for you to think beyond conventional things, essays, to make it more interesting. A working woman might definitely be adding more to the economy only at the expense of her energy, her freedom and her autonomy, only at the expense. So definitely development does not mean more share for women in employment. Development does not mean more women in politics. Development does not mean more economic freedom for women. Development does not mean share in property for women. It means something else. What is it? It means something else. Then I will say, what is it? I will question mark and underline it. Question mark and I will underline it. What is it? Then I will come out with solutions. Again, solution will be creative. Right? This is how you have to think. As I said, every year one essay will be related to women. It will definitely be there every year. One essay related to women. And you have to be very creative while writing essays. Because these kind of things you cannot write in your general studies. Neither in social issues, nor in political governance, nor in economy, nor in ethics. These kind of things you can write only in your essays. You can express your originality only in these aspects. What is the administrative dimension here when it comes to women? Yes, what is the administrative dimension? What is the administrative dimension? The literal meaning of administration is to serve, and this function can best be performed by women. Why? Because compared to men, women have a lot more patience, a lot more energy and a lot more empathy. Yes, obviously, that is what you have to think unconventionally. That's what I said. At least not every line, if not every line, at least 2 lines in one page. That is what preparing the structure. Every page, when I am writing about, as I said, administrative dimension, the literal meaning of administration is to serve. Who can perform this function better than women? I will put the question mark. Serving. Why? Because what is needed for service? What are the qualities that are needed for serving others? What are the qualities? Patience. First one is patience. You need to have a lot of patience. You need to have empathy. You need to have compassion. and it is believed that women have these qualities better than men. Right? The dimension is over. That is what, as I said, in our essays, almost everyone will try to cover these dimensions. But how you cover these dimensions is more important. How will you make the things interesting is more important. And that is what UPSC is looking from you. That is what UPSC is looking from you. Especially when you are selecting these kind of essays, essays related to women, essays related to, as I said, emotional issues like sharing of river waters, issues like capitalism and inclusive growth, issues like economic reforms and jobless growth. Here you can express your emotions in a free, very, unhindered manner, without any limitations, provided you have the ability to think in unconventional manner. And preparation for essay means only this. Take any topic and try to see how you can make your essay interesting by making it more unconventional, by making it more emotional, by making it more sentimental, and by making it more radical. Okay. As I said, for capitalism and inclusive growth, when the needs are universal, why can't be resources? Why can't be resources? When human needs are universal, why can't be resources? Similarly, you can see, something like economic reforms and jobless growth. How can you introduce that topic? Economic reforms and jobless growth, to make it more interesting, radical, to make it more unconventional. What kind of interesting will you come out with? Yes. Economic reforms and jobless growth. This is the topic I think they have given last year. How will you make it interesting? With your introduction. What is the introduction will you write? Think. Economy. Irony, it is creating less jobs. Where is the irony here? But where did you bring in economic reforms here? We had a closed economy between 1950s and 1990s. Did it result in more jobs? No. Then why do you say that open economy is not creating jobs? Right? Why do you say that open economy is not creating jobs? And what is the solution? When you are saying that open economy is not creating jobs, it means you are offering the solution that economy should be closed. But introduction should be only 2-3 lines. I am confused. Your objective should not be to confuse me, to make it interesting. Think. As I said, writing essays is not as an easy task because you have to think. You have to think creatively. By this time you have realized that it is not easy. Think. Yes. I am getting confused. No, the topic is economic reforms and jobless growth. How do you link both of them? I will start by saying that it is completely wrong to say that economic reforms have resulted in jobless growth, because we have not implemented any economic reforms. The answer is over. What we have implemented were only changes in 1991 because of emergency situation. They can never be called reforms. Obviously, that is what, that is what it makes. Then the entire essay will become interesting. I will talk about what are the changes we have implemented, why those changes have not resulted in job-led growth, and what should be done as part of reforms to ensure job-led growth. Obviously, because that is what, when I am making this statement, I will make this statement on the basis of the assumption that I can convince the other person about what I am writing. Otherwise, you can write whatever you want. As I said, it is wrong to say that economic reforms have resulted in jobless growth, because if you want, you reduce the intensity, because real reforms were not implemented. Fine. But again, the drama will be lost. Emotions will be lost. Because in 1991, we only implemented changes but not reforms. Okay. Real reforms would have resulted in job-led growth. Then I will talk about what are the changes we have implemented in 1991, why those changes were implemented, why they have not resulted in job-led growth. I will say that next statement is agriculture, which employs maximum number of people. Agriculture which employs maximum number of people is not at all impacted by economic reforms, either positively or negatively. Agriculture is completely out of reform process. Why? Because who has to implement the reforms? Government. Does government have any control over agriculture? No. Agriculture in India is completely privately owned. Government can implement delicensing policies. Government open up private sector. Government open up domestic economy to foreign sector. This is in the hands of government. What can the government do with agriculture? Yes, what can the government do with agriculture? Government has not done anything. That is the reason why it is resulting in jobless growth. What the government should have done as part of reforms is acting as a true facilitator to ensure rapid growth and development of agriculture sector by focusing more on investment in agriculture. Government opted for easy way out. It started spending a lot of money on subsidies, which only resulted in stagnation, which only resulted in disguised unemployment. That is what you have to write. You know, when I'm making such a radical statement, I'm 100% convinced that I can make examiner, read my whole essay and accept my views. Still 50% of our population, more than out, they depend on agriculture for their survival, and the role of government is limited in agriculture. There are no reforms. What agriculture was before 1991 is same as what it is now, except that the government increased subsidies. The subsidy bill of agriculture, nobody gets. In fact, the farmers never get the subsidy. Fertilizer subsidy 70,000 crores, out of which farmers will get only 14,000 crores. Obviously, you have to. Then you don't have to be sympathetic towards government in writing essays. You don't have to. Exactly. That is different. GS. This is essay. Yes, you can afford to be critical. Essay will give you that kind of freedom. I am not critical of the government for the sake of criticizing the government. I am critical of the government to bring about the real facts, and immediately I will come out with solutions. And that is what essay is all about. I will come out with solutions. But the only thing is that to make my essay more interesting, I am coming out with these radical statements. I am just adding some spice to my statements to make them more interesting. You have to think on those lines. You have to think. Economic reforms have not resulted in job-led growth because we have not implemented reforms. And that is what exactly economic survey says. That is what exactly 12th 5-year plan report says. That is what exactly Administrative Reforms Commission report says. I am not saying any of these things on my own. If you read the reports of second ERC, they are much more critical. My criticism looks very mild compared to what the criticism made by second ERC reports. Why do you have to fear? Why do you have to fear, in calling spade a spade? That is what is required for your essay. For this, you must have that kind of conviction in your ideas. Then only you will get marks. With this statement, the essay is over. Economic reforms have not resulted in job-led growth because we have not implemented economic reforms. Simple. Simple. What we have implemented in 1990 were changes but not reforms. And the reforms have completely ignored the most critical sector of Indian economy, that is agriculture. What are the reforms we have implemented in agriculture in 1991? 1991 economic policy, new economic policy had new industrial policy, new policy for public sector enterprise, and a new policy for foreign investment. Does it have any new policy for agriculture? Till now, the government has not come out with national agriculture policy, which Swaminathan committee has recommended for long. Write the same thing. I am putting the same information in a more, dramatic fashion, and that is what is required for essays. To have that kind of impact, impact. Once this introduction is done, it will be very easy for you to write the rest of the essays. And that's why I always say that for essay means introduction. Introduction is what you call the life of any essay. And you take any essay, for example, take this digital economy. What is the topic? Do you know the topic? Digital economy, is a source of inequality or is it a leveler? That is what digital economy, a source of inequality or a leveler. What kind of dramatic introduction will you come out with for digital economy? Is it a source of inequality or is it a leveler? Think.
Providing ATMs like Rupee card to the poor or the
balance will be there only 0. Where it is? At the end of the day, it will be 0 only. What is the spirit behind this? Digital economy, a leveler or a source of inequality? What do you think?
Digital economy can cause growth and jobs, but not in a country which have more than 30% people who are illiterate. Not in a country who have.
What is the interaction? How will you make it interesting?
Because you're trying to give everything digitally, but people can't use the internet. Then what do they use? And
No, make it more dramatic. What you are saying? What you are saying, you put it in more, in a more interesting fashion.
so only 30% of the 35% of the population of India is using only internet. So it cannot be like a boon for the.
All this is part of your explanation. What is interaction? As I said, interaction can be from historical dimension. It can be in the form of a very interesting story, or it can be in the form of a very radical statement. Yeah, yes.
Digital economy created a digital divide between it based on
Haves and have-nots. Okay. Very interesting statement here. I know that it has created. Where is that impact? Big bang impact.
Comparing to the students, now they are more advanced in the.
Yes.
Digital economy is a source of inequality. As for spreading the jam, in the first place, we need the bread of literacy, and then I'll come back that literacy.
As for spreading the jam, you need?
The bread of literacy.
Okay, bread. Okay, fine. You are talking about bread and jam. Okay, Jandan, Aadhaar and mobile. Okay, very good. This is fine. Okay, this is very humorous. Okay, fine. And
Studying the drop conditions by satellite, which can help the farmers even in the work.
I said I wanted dramatic effect. If digital economy is for India or for Bharat, okay, fine. India or Bharat, okay. You are bringing Rahul Gandhi here. Okay. Okay. And think more. Think more, as I said, try to link unrelated things to make it interesting. In India, we considered Ram Raj, the kingdom of Ram, as an example of good governance, and there was no digital economy in those days. Right? Yes? Was there any digital economy? At present, India has largest number of mobile phones in the world. But still, we have a maximum amount of inequalities. Look at, where we are interconnecting the things. Right? Whenever you talk about, a welfare state, what do you say? What is the example you give? In India, the kingdom of Lord Ram was considered the best example of a welfare state. So I will go back there and try to link it to the present times. At that point of time, digital technology was not there. Still, it was a welfare state. Now we have digital technology, but we don't have a welfare state. So, the tempo of my essay is clear here. This digital technology can only be a means and can never be an end in itself. Digital economy, digital technology can only be a means, an instrument, but can never be an end in itself. The ultimate objective is establishing egalitarian societies. Then I will see whether digital technology, digital economy can help me in achieving this objective or not. If I only look at digital India by ignoring the inequalities, digital economy only accentuate inequalities. Are you getting the point here? If I only look at digital India as the objective by ignoring inequalities in the society, this digital India will only accentuate inequalities. On the other hand, if I look at digital India as an instrument to remove inequalities, it can be a leveler. Are you getting the point here? That is what you have to think. So think, there are no boundaries to our thinking, provided we are willing. So I am not looking at digital economy leveler or inequalities. I am looking at good governance. I am looking at a welfare state. In a welfare state, every person, irrespective of his caste, creed, religion, region, language, must be able to access basic goods. In a welfare state, must have access to basic goods. In a welfare state. That is the reason why I gave the example of Lord Ram Raj. This is what I believe. The belief is that Mahatma Gandhi always talked about establishing Ram Raj. Why? Because it is believed that the king had made sacrifices for the people. The king ensured betterment of societies. And I come to the present governments which are obsessed with digital technology, in the process ignored the basic issue, that is inequalities. And that is the reason why the present digital India, it only results more in widening inequalities than acting as a leveler. Widening inequalities. Then you can talk about all the problems and you can come out with solutions. But again, as I said, you must be able to think. That's what I am saying, I am raising about the topic. What I am saying is that it does not really matter whether we have digital economy or not, because digital economy cannot do anything. It can neither accentuate inequalities nor act as a leveler. Digital economy combined with something else will achieve these things.
That's fine. But in such topics, are we required to take one stand only, like yes or no?
No, not at all.
I'm not talking about mentioning this yes or no.
But again, in those topics where you have to take stand, you have to take, for example, the previous topic which we have discussed, if development is not engendered, there I have taken a stand. No, not a stand, because it is not required, because digital economy is not a final objective, an end. Instrument should not have any values, and instrument will not have any values. It is only an instrument to achieve something else. What is that something else and how to combine both the things will be part of my essay. That is what you must write. And to make it more dramatic, interesting, I started with Ram Raj, or I can start with Ashoka. King Ashoka, the Emperor Ashoka, after his reformation, focused on welfare of people, which resulted in what you call Ashoka becoming the symbol of a welfare state for modern India after post-independence. At that point of time, there was no digital technology, but the objective of welfare state was achieved. I will give that. If you are not comfortable about writing about Lord Ram, you can talk about Ashoka, a more historical figure, because Ram might be mythological. But my objective is to make my essay interesting. That is what I am doing, and that is what you have to think while writing essays, linking completely two unrelated things, and in the process coming out with something which is very interesting, innovative, and that is what you are expected. Once you have this introduction on your fingertips, then rest of the things will be very, very easy. Essay means coming out with this kind of interesting introductions. As part of our discussions over the next 4 days, we will be discussing only this kind of introductions for essays. Then rest of things will be very easy. Rest of the essay will be very easy, because as I said, in every essay you will be covering all the dimensions: political dimension, economic dimension, cultural dimension, ethical dimension, global dimension, environmental dimension, legal dimension. This is the only way to get what you call the 150, 160 marks in essays. And preparation means coming out with these kind of introductions. Interesting. It can be sometimes historical. Sometimes it can be in the form of radical statements, like we have given for capitalism and inclusive growth. Sometimes it can be in the form of interlinking unrelated events, like we have given for digital economy. Sometimes it can be in the form of a short story, like we have given for same, I think, for digital economy, the same thing I have given about the Bansal brothers for Flipkart in a short story form. But again, what you have to remember is that when you are writing essays, this introduction is very important. And for remaining 10 pages, as I said, covering all the dimensions. In one page you can cover 2 dimensions. So that if you are covering 10 dimensions, it will be around 6 to 7 pages. Remaining 2 pages can be about solutions, again which are creative. The essay will be over, and you will not be looking for any what you call material for essays once you know all the dimensions. And as we have discussed in the case of the engendered and endangered, while talking about those dimensions also, we are looking at something unconventional things like economic freedom for women. Does it really ensure more freedom or more bondage? If a woman is working, it is ensuring a more empowerment, more freedom, or more bondage, right? So the solution does not lie in economic freedom or political empowerment. The solution lies somewhere else. What is that somewhere? Something else you have to write. Again, be creative. You have to be more creative. So this is how we will do the things, and tomorrow onwards we will try to have as many essays in 2 hours as possible. Try to cover as many essays. Again, as I said, it is not about dictating the essays. If you are expecting me to dictate essays in the class, then this is not the right place. I will not be dictating the things. I want you to think on the lines. I will give you the ideas. I will give you the dimensions. Conclusion. Conclusion, as I said, again creative. Come out with the creative, solutions. For example, take the essay, engendered and endangered. What kind of conclusion will you give? About why development is endangered if it is not engendered. Where is the question of danger to development? And what kind of solution will you come out with? Creative. Yes. Yes.
Can we use language and change as strong as its weakest link? So in the development process, the women will be a weakest link. If they will be not strong, surely the development will be on a fragile ground.
But again, everyone will write the same thing. After 4th essay, What will be my feeling after reading your essay? Take that booklet into my hands and cut it into as many pieces as possible.
Just one question I'd like to ask.
Yes.
How to get this dramatic language?
Not dramatic language, ideas.
It's the same thing.
Yes. Language is the same.
Everyone has similar kind of ideas, like everyone must be having the
Yes, think unconventionally. Never follow the beaten path.
how to do that.
How to do that? Think.
That is a big question.
Yes, think. How to think? I don't know. I have to think about thinking and how to think. Think. I am also the part of same society which you belong to.
So sometimes like, if you try to think in that way, there is a chance that you go out of context.
There is nothing like out of context. Come out with creative. Think about creative solutions. Creative. Think. We have mentioned in the problems, the job is half done. Think about solutions. Creative. Think about solutions and tell me tomorrow, then let me see whether you have, I am giving you 24 hours. In the UPSC examination you have only 20 minutes. Think about solutions. Come out with something creative as part of a solution. Creative. For this gender empowerment. Yes, think about it. It does not really matter. If it is points in paragraphs, what really matters is solutions. It need not be in points. In essays, it can be in paragraphs. It can be in paragraphs in essays. But I want you to come out with some creative solutions. As I said, at the end of the day, it is a question of 160 marks. The difference between 120 and 160. Old Rajanagar and Mussoorie. Between hell and heaven, permanent. You have to think. Because when the returns are so good, you should not say that I will not work. What do you think? The creative solutions. Yes. Okay, no problem. As I said, think about it and tell me tomorrow. Tell me tomorrow. Think about it. Otherwise, I will give you the solutions. If I give solutions for 4 or 5 essays, then maybe you can develop the same kind of thought process. If I give the solutions for 4 or 5 essays, you can develop the thought process. First, what we will do is that we will take up some of the important previous year's essays, and then I will discuss what are the essays that can be asked for this year. That is how we will proceed. So tomorrow we will meet at the same time at 2:30, and we will continue with our discussions. All right.